Welcome back to the Classical Music Podcast. I am Brigitte Valzat, and today I'm here with Mario Häring, pianist from Germany, and welcome to the couch.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about yourself.
You mean what I do at the moment or what I do in general under normal circumstances?
Who you are, where you're from, where you were born, I don't know, anything.
Well, I am born in Germany, actually in Hanover.
Yeah.
But I grew up in Berlin. I'm half Japanese. My mom is a Japanese violinist. Actually, both my parents are violinists.
Oh, really?
So I come
did not
from
know
a
that.
very musical household. I also started learning the violin. So violin was my first instrument for 1 year.
Well,
No, I played the violin for 13, no, maybe even more. Wait, let me think. I have to do some math in my brain.
it's difficult to ask sometimes.
In 15 years. I played
What?
violin for 15 years. Mm-hmm. And I
That's
started piano like 1 or 2 years later.
Mm-hmm.
And it quickly became my main focus because somehow felt
Yeah.
more natural to me.
That's so funny. It's kind of it's not exactly the same, but similar with me because I started with piano actually, and then a few years later started violin, and I did both for quite some time. But it was just so clear that violin was much more natural to me
Oh, yeah?
somehow. So I guess the instrument
What
really does.
made you feel like it was more natural?
Well, I never felt comfortable on the piano. I always had so much tension, and with the violin, I just
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know.
For me, it was exactly the opposite because holding a violin in itself is just already such a difficult task. And especially like, I think I have quite a long neck, so the distance between my shoulder and my neck is quite long. And I had to always find like the right shoulder rest to and put it up to the highest height, and I would still like
Man, I know
have
the struggles.
feeling of I would let the violin fall if I didn't take care enough.
Yeah, well, this is something I had to figure out. Luckily, Kofka put out a really great shoulder rest a couple years ago, and this one you can like mold to your shoulder. So when I found that, finally my struggles were gone. But yeah, but it's just interesting the way that you know somehow what you want to do. Like
Yeah, well, I'm also a very lazy person, so like standing up while practicing was also like quite annoying to me.
I see. Well, that's why I sit sometimes when I practice, which I think is also important because the amount of sitting you have to do in orchestra, for example,
It's true.
you actually need to
Yeah.
train
Mm-hmm.
it a bit, otherwise you get some issues. Yeah, well, I thought, there have been many topics that have been covered already, and I felt like these topics are so broad and there's so much to talk about it that why not hear a few more perspectives, I suppose, and maybe not on everything, but just like, broaden the spectrum a bit, and there is not just one opinion, there are many, and everybody has different experiences.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
I mean, what did we talk about so far? We had your mental state while practicing and performing, and then we had mental health, musician's health, sorry, and then communication, and then we had what? Oh, these weeks have flown by so fast; it's hard to remember. After that, we had motivation. And then last week was more of a chatting situation, a slightly different, not really a topic, but we did cover a lot of topics within that as well. So yeah, and now we're at episode 6. I can't believe it
Already?
actually.
Wow, yeah.
I didn't know if it would last that long. And here we are. So yeah, I mean, I would be interested to know what your year has been like so far actually.
It's been quite an interesting ride, I guess, for every one of us. It started off pretty intense. So I had like a short notice replacement concert on the 1st of January, and then I had basically a full calendar until mid-March. So in mid-March I had a CD recording with a cellist, a friend of mine, a cellist. And after that, it kind of became clear that this virus thing is gonna stay for a while, and there have to be like some measures that we all have to take to stay safe. And luckily for me, that was like kind of a time that I kept free in my calendar, because I somehow wanted to travel a little. And usually never travel just for fun, because I get to travel a lot for my work already. So.
Yeah.
But that one time I actually wanted to go somewhere, but then we were forbidden to go anywhere. But the good thing about that was that I basically didn't lose any concerts in the first few weeks. So I was like, okay, maybe this will pass until then.
We all hoped that, didn't we?
Yeah. But nope, that was not really the case. And well, yeah, basically until early summer, I would say, I didn't have anything to do, which was also quite nice, I have to say.
Yeah, in the beginning, like, I mean, of course there's the shock, but then you go like, I haven't had this much time in so long. What am I gonna do?
Well, yeah, in the beginning I was kind of prepared to do nothing for at least like maybe a week, so that was not a shock for me, but like the continuation of that state was interesting.
So did you start any new hobbies, or?
I did, actually. I bought a guitar.
Oh.
Because I wanted to play, there's this computer game, Rocksmith. You need a proper guitar, because I'm a huge Guitar Hero fan.
Ah, okay.
And I thought, why not combine like learning a real instrument with a game? But that motivation didn't last very long, like so many things.
Yeah.
And I actually tried to pick up the violin again.
Really?
I started like scales and flash and stuff like that, but
probably did more
same
practice
story.
or better practice than I did in that time.
Well, I doubt it.
It's not quite like a bike, you know, getting back on.
It's quite frustrating, to be honest. Like, to know what you were once able to do and then notice all the things that went missing.
Yeah.
It's not nice.
That's also why I never touched the piano anymore. There was a time when, like, for a couple of years, I could still play the same pieces, like, over and over again. I was like, every once in a while, like, I can play the piano.
Yeah.
Now, I can barely play 3 notes anymore. I'm like, okay, I'm done with that.
Yes, but even as a pianist, I do have the same experience.
Really?
So you still have to keep in shape.
Yeah, that's important. But in any kind of situation, I guess, not even just the musician. I mean, everything takes repetition and practice. Yeah. Otherwise, you will at least lose most of the function, I suppose.
Yeah, and especially in these times, it's also quite an important topic, because we all kind of lose the experience of going on stage constantly, which is also something that you have to train. Like, the more you do it, the better you become.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And now, like, the first lockdown was already quite a long time without going on stage, so it felt kind of weird, like, being back on stage in the summer, during the summer. But it was also we were very lucky to have a kind of normal summer. I don't know if it was the same for you, but
I mean, more after summer, but summer felt like a normal summer holiday somehow.
Yeah, I mean, some festivals, they took different approaches with, like, only digital concerts or radio concerts. Well, definitely with reduced audiences, playing twice and stuff like that we all know now. But at least we got to work, which is nice. And especially, like, rehearsing and chamber music, that's the stuff that I really miss. Yeah.
Yeah, you do a lot of chamber, I think, right? I mean, would you say that's, like, predominantly what you spend most of your time doing?
Well, it fluctuates. I think last year was maybe 50% solo, 50% chamber music, and this year was probably maybe 70% chamber music, 30% solo. But I try to keep a balance between these, because I couldn't live without any of them.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No, I think that's fantastic. I think not just one route or one style of concert, and I think chamber especially is such a valuable skill to develop, and you learn so much even when you don't realize what you're learning, because it forces you to open your ears in a different way than you would as a soloist or even an orchestra. It's such a I find chamber is a really intimate kind of thing. It's a intimate in a way that you have the freedom to be creative within your part. Like, for example, a piano trio. Everyone is kind of has their own special part and has their own soloistic way, but you have to really get to know the other players on such a kind of personal level to blend it well somehow, I find.
Yeah. A piano trio is probably also a very special combination, because like this is such a big, they have so much repertoire, and it's like a genre in itself. But also I like how you have to stay flexible and have to react like on the spot to something that you didn't expect. And that's something I really like. And if you meet someone that like has the same kind of thinking about music or the same feeling, and you really click and you don't even need to think about what you're doing, you just feel it, that's the magic.
Absolutely. Oh, I 100% agree. I mean, that kind of takes us back to this communication topic.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of the biggest and most important things, especially in chamber music, because you're right, and it should be spontaneous, and you should be able to react to what your fellow musicians are doing in that moment, because if it's, I think it should never, especially chamber and piano trio, should never be so perfectly planned out. I think it's perhaps more important in an orchestra because there's so many people, but in such, it's such a unique ensemble opportunity to be able to have that flexibility, but you really need to trust the people that you're working with, and if you don't have that, then it becomes almost like a fight on stage somehow. Sometimes.
Well, it depends on the people.
Yeah.
It can also become quite boring.
Yeah, also.
The opposite of a fight, but
yeah.
But I mean, you definitely need some kind of groundwork where you discuss like even small details, so you feel like even if you didn't do anything spontaneous, it would be a proper interpretation of the piece. But then the next step is, of course, to communicate on stage. Oh, I have this idea. Maybe I want to do something different. And then you show.
Yeah. Oh, that's so magical. I really miss that.
Yeah. Well, and especially for us pianists, it's very special to play chamber music, because there are not many other other instruments that, there are only one person on stage. I mean, maybe with violin, but even then it's quite rare to have like pure solo violin concerts. And for me, that's also a big part, because if we travel as soloists, like playing piano recitals, we're all on our own.
Yeah,
which
must
is
get so lonely.
It is really nice, because you have everything under control. You can do spontaneously what you want in this moment without taking care about anyone else, which can also be very freeing. But also, how you just said, it's quite lonely. So I can't imagine like a life of playing only solo.
Yeah.
No
Crazy.
wonder all the pianists are weirdos.
I didn't say that.
We all know it.
Yeah. Oh, that's so. Yeah, I can't even imagine that. I mean, that would, I guess, almost never happen for a violinist to be really, like as you said, completely solo concerts, and to
even
like
if you play concertos, then you have orchestras, and like you have a connection to orchestra members, because they're kind of like violinists, for example. They play the same instrument and they know how you feel probably, but when you play piano in front of an orchestra, there's not this immediate connection, I feel like, as when there is like a string player.
Yeah, perhaps. Oh, interesting, actually.
But maybe that's just me.
I don't know. I have never played piano with orchestra. Yeah, crazy. So Mario, what do you do for your mental and physical health, if you do anything?
Well, I think I am quite lucky that sounds weird, but I'm lucky that I'm not such a sociable person. So I don't need many social contacts like in everyday life to get by. So this time has not put such a big stress on my mental health, I think, as it might have on others.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, of course, I still try to, not fall into a dark hole where I only see the negative things of negative sides of like the current situation and stuff. But I think I'm doing quite okay. I do like some sports at home, and if I go outside, I usually ride my bike, and that's all that I do to keep fit.
Well, it's fine. I mean, it's not about being fit, but it's more like it's just, everyone has their own ways of how they feel best. Yeah, as you said, I mean, you said you didn't have so many problems this year, especially with that kind of mental struggle. I think that's quite impressive, actually. So you must be doing something right.
Well, maybe I just don't care enough.
Or that.
It's not a good thing.
Or maybe it has something to do with the gaming.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I feel like it might.
Yeah,
and I think it's cool.
The only people that I know that don't struggle with this time at all are actually other people who game. Because they love being at home and just do what they love.
Well, it's actually the perfect time to get into gaming, because it's really you get an escape from the world from your own home.
Yeah.
I see it in that way. I mean, I'm not at all a gamer. I've always been fascinated. That was very Kiwi. Fascinated but I could never really get into it somehow.
Yeah, you should try.
But I love watching it.
Oh, that's also nice.
I'm not talented in these controllers.
Yeah, as a child I also loved watching other people play stuff, because it's like a movie basically.
Yeah, but it's live and you get to control it.
Yeah, and you literally don't know what's going to happen next, because if the person who's playing messes up, then...
Do you think that affects your creativity as a musician?
Playing games?
Yeah. And by effect, I mean, like, do you think it...
In some way, for sure, because, I mean, also watching movies can inspire you in a very interesting way, because there are many games that are highly creative, that offer things that you could never have thought about by yourself, and you're surprised by the creativity of other people and get inspired by it, of course. But also, like, there are so many different kinds of games. There are like these story-driven games where you're really taken into another world and experiencing this whole story that someone has created, and the whole world is like very magical and stuff. But also there's this kind of game where you really have to stay focused and have to communicate, and also work out strategies and stuff. So it trains very different aspects of thinking, and I actually like that a lot more than, for example, watching TV, because there you literally just sit there and consume. It can also be fun. I've done that too, but I have to admit during the lockdown I think I've never watched this little movies or shows or something.
Really? Yeah. You haven't binge watched any Netflix shows?
Of course I have. Of course I have, but like related to the amount of free time that we now have, it didn't increase the same.
Actually, I have to say the same for me. I kind of went away from it even more.
Yeah, I would have imagined, like, okay, now I can work on my watch list, like watch 2 movies every day, but
for me that's so boring. I mean, I love getting into a show, but usually that's just like if I'm waiting for something to have something on in the background, or even while I'm practicing or something. But
what?
Yeah, you've never done that?
Not really.
It's quite fun.
Yeah, but then I mean I'm not very focused anyway, so if I had something on in the background I wouldn't be focused.
But maybe that will help you train your focus.
I doubt it.
Well, I mean, I don't do it all the time, but if it's still playing and I'm just like, well, I just want to pick up my violin and play something, and not like I just want to play my violin and not really. It's a good way to shut out the noise somehow.
Okay, but then you don't
relaxed.
really notice what's going on in the show, no?
It depends what the show is. I mean, as I said, I usually have it in the background anyway, so I'm not really watching.
Okay.
If I am watching something. Usually I use it just to fall asleep.
Aww. That's what radio is for me.
Really?
Mm-hmm. I listen to radio every night, like classical radio.
Oh no.
I do.
Really?
And my radio has this super practical feature that it slowly fades out the volume, so you don't even notice when it's off.
That's nice.
It's really nice.
Though I have this weird thing about, especially, it's really weird actually, but especially classical music, like radio stations, because when I was younger, we were traveling every 2 weeks to my violin teacher who was in a different city, and when we would travel, we would always have the classical channel going in the car, and it would just make me car sick every time. I would beg my mum to turn it off. No, it wasn't even the music. Oh. That was the funny thing. It was the voice of the guy introducing the pieces. That was Brahms' concerto. Something like this, and I couldn't handle it. So no. I cannot really listen to classical radio since then. But
that's a pity.
Or maybe it's just in cars. I don't know.
Maybe.
Do you have a favorite composer?
I have several.
Well,
I guess no
sense.
one can really answer this question with only one composer, I guess, no? Or can you?
No.
Yeah, but I have like a list of composers that I really like, and depending on what I'm working on or what my current mood is, I think the top maybe 2 or 3 they fluctuate. But some of my, like, if I had to decide on one composer, I think it would be a very stereotypical answer, which is Bach, because I mean,
I would completely agree with you on that. Like, I mean, how can you compare anything to Bach? Although I have heard some people say that they're not huge fans of Bach, actually, and
musicians.
Yes. Yes, well, and I remember being incredibly surprised. This was actually quite recently, and I think I remember who it was, but I will not say. But I was really shocked because at least I thought that every classical musician respects Bach that much.
Was that someone who was playing an instrument that there is not a lot of repertoire for by Bach? Oh, interesting. Because I mean, playing Bach is always a different story, because I don't feel comfortable playing Bach because it's so difficult, like mentally. But I love, like, if you explore it, the more you explore it, you find new things, and like just the complexity, and it's still not just, it's, you know, like some modern pieces, it's not like only complex for the sake of being complex, but it's also emotional and beautiful and everything. And he's like so far back in time that I sometimes wonder
how did this happen? Where it's I mean, that is really, at least for me, also one of the most special things about Bach is that there is no end to discovery when you're looking at his scores and listening, and because also a lot in his scores is missing. If you, for example, in, like, not really missing, but in the solo Bach works, I mean, you have to imagine a lot of the harmonies because we don't have enough.
Oh, but the violin solo stuff is also very complete, no? Oh.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely complete, but that's what I mean, is that there are hidden lines within it. I mean, it's very what's the word?
Polyphonic?
Polyphonic. Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, there are many parts where you can imagine he would put an extra bass note where it's not written, for example. So it's like, I like to call it like hidden harmonies and extra notes that you imagine while you're playing. And I don't know, I find this incredibly fascinating. But yeah, it's not everyone's cup of tea. But that's a really interesting point that you said about, like, the difference in performing the composer's works or enjoying the way it sounds or appreciating the way it's written or something. I think that's a huge difference because, like, for example, Mendelssohn, I think he's an incredible composer. I hate playing Mendelssohn.
Oh yeah?
I mean, it depends on...
Because of the technical stuff?
Yeah, I just feel like it's not very well written for the violin, or at least
Yeah, that I can't tell, but it's quite well written for piano, even though it's sometimes very difficult. You always, like, find a way to, you know, become comfortable with it. Just like, Well, I would have said Rachmaninoff because he's a pianist and it's super difficult. But I actually hate learning Rachmaninoff because there's just so many notes.
Yeah.
But I love it. I hate learning it, but I love listening to it and playing it once I get past the learning.
This is really sometimes, there are some composers like actually just learning the score is the most challenging part.
Yes.
I like for me, I find it so hard to learn the notes of Isaïe. I know it and I love it, and once I have the positions it's okay, but like learning it I'm like, this is not possible. I can't. But it's, I guess that's a part of the process. Yeah, but for example, I never really played much of his works, a bit, but like, I mean, no. I was gonna say one of my favorite composers is Prokofiev.
Oh yeah, same for me.
And I think his Violin Concerto No. 1 especially, I mean, this is my favorite concerto for the violin. I think it's incredible. But I've never played it yet. I've only played a bit of some chamber, but I still consider him to be one of my favorite composers just because of the way that he writes, and I think the transparency in his scores and the details, and especially in the rhythm and harmony, I think it's incredible. But I haven't really played a lot of his work, so I just realized like, I actually didn't work so much on his repertoire, but I know it also very well. Somehow.
There's not so much for violin, no? There's like
there's a solo sonata.
Oh, is there two? Is there one?
No,
there's two. Yeah.
There are two. One is shared with flute.
Exactly.
I believe. Yeah, and then there's a solo sonata, and I played the duo for two violins.
Yeah, that's
incredible work. I didn't even know it before. I actually just played it last year at a festival with someone I'd never met before, and what a way to get to know a chamber partner. This was really an incredible experience. I mean, I really just met her the day before we went to this masterclass, and we rehearsed it once and then turned up.
Wow.
But it was really interesting because we knew nothing about each other, and playing especially something of this kind of category and level was such a challenge. But on the end of the week I thought, oh my goodness, I've learned so much, and I've discovered another human being, and I've gained an impression from this person. They've left somehow a mark, and it's such a special feeling.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
I had a similar experience actually in the summer, where a friend of mine, a cellist, has a festival, and we were supposed to play there. I was supposed to play there with a violinist the next day, but he was also in our group because we were playing like one short trio piece. And the day before our concert, he got a call that a piano duo, which was supposed to play the morning of the day of our concert, couldn't come because of travel restrictions. So we actually had to jump in with like not even a full day of notice before, with a complete recital program.
What?
So we played, I think, only 1 hour, but still, 2 Beethoven sonatas and... Was it 2? Yeah, 2 Beethoven sonatas and 1 variations by Beethoven as well. And I'm always very nervous when I get offers like this, like, can you jump in tomorrow with this? And there are pieces that I haven't played in half a year, but I have played them quite a lot, so it was a fun experience. I mean, it went really well. We we got along very well musically, so that was a big help, of course, on stage. And we also had only 1 rehearsal the night before, but it was really fun.
It's incredible, right? I feel like these are the moments where you really need to know yourself so well that you can trust yourself. To trust yourself to make the right decision.
And also know which parts you have to practice. Very important.
Yes. This is, and I think also, especially when you're going on the stage, then you've had very little preparation, and I think it's so easy to get caught up in this thought, like, I cannot mess this up, rather than just trust in your muscle memory and like just know, okay, you also you have the score, so.
And you've played it tons. And,
But it's quite a challenge actually. Do you get performance anxiety?
I wouldn't say performance anxiety. I get sometimes I get nervous before going on stage, but it has reduced a lot. Not reduced. It has
reduced.
Gone down. Okay, a lot since I've started not memorizing everything, because for pianists it's kind of expected to play a full recital or all the piano concertos by memory. And that was for me, I don't know why, because I only had like one bad experience with it, but that was the one thing that I was always scared of, like having a full-on blackout on stage.
This is crazy.
So by deciding not to play everything by memory and putting my iPad on the piano, it's gotten so much more enjoyable for me. I mean, you still have to prepare it the same way as you would if you memorized the piece.
Yeah.
But
it
it's
just adds
such
security, I suppose.
Yeah. You feel like, I mean, it's also a different challenge to be as free with the score as you would be without it. Because if you don't have everything internalized, you still, have this kind of extra step. So that's something that you need to practice for sure.
Yeah.
But once you get used to that, it's really, I really like it.
It's really interesting, because actually in the first episode we were kind of talking about this, like performing, and it came up that this fear of forgetting the notes, and it's a very common thing, of course, but especially for pianists. I mean, you have so many notes; it's unbelievable to me. And it should. I didn't know that it was really expected for like recitals that you had to play everything by heart. I really didn't know. I thought
it kind of is. I mean, these days I think more and more people decide to not do it, because I think everyone should play as they feel most comfortable, because in the end it's about the music and not about showing off your memory.
Yeah, of course. So, and then if you get it wrong, then you've learned it wrong or whatever.
I mean, there are people who do feel much more comfortable playing by memory or from memory, so they should just continue doing it. But
well, I used to say that I was much more comfortable playing by memory, to the point where I wouldn't even use the score for sonatas and so on.
Oh wow.
Or if I would just have it there, but not even turn the pages. But I think that was more because well, back then I didn't write so much in the score, and what I did write in the score was from lessons, and it may have changed, or it could be from different master classes. There are so many different things, and then when I would look at the score, there would be like 4 options or something, and I would freak out and do something random. But actually, since then, I now am trying in my practice to train to always do different fingerings, which has been something that's been so much more helpful than I even anticipated. Wow. Because basically what I'm trying to do when I do this is to know the violin just better, to know exactly where the note is no matter what finger, just so that in any circumstance I know where the note has to be rather than, and then you get to know the position and the colours also much better, because every finger has a different colour as well. So that's been really interesting. But then sometimes it happens that I just start doing random things rather than just choosing one and sticking to it. But it's always have to find the right balance for yourself, and it's a process.
Yeah. I mean, for me, maybe it's a difference of our instruments, but for me as a pianist, I think like at least shortly before the concert I need to decide for proper fingering. Otherwise on stage I'll get like, oh, what's the fingering again, and then I'll just get it mixed up.
Right.
And we don't have like this option of having different positions for the same note. So, yeah.
True.
But staying flexible is definitely a good practice, I think.
Yeah. Do you practice improvisation?
No. This is like one topic, improvisation, that I'm always pushing away from it, because I always say I can't do it, I can't.
Yeah.
Because we as classical musicians are never really trained to try. And I'm always thinking I should definitely, like in my safe zone at home, I should try it, you know, why not? And sometimes when I'm like tired of practicing, I will just improvise some stuff, but I will never consciously put it on my practice schedule.
Right.
Although I think it's a very useful skill to have. And actually once, like, I was playing with two amazing violinists and cellists, and we were playing Monty's Chardash. And they were like, come on, improvise something in the beginning for the concert.
You're like,
oh no, I can't. But then after, you know, I let this sink in and I said no, and they were okay with it. When I practiced, I actually tried some things out, and in the concert I actually did it. Like, I tried to improvise just in intro cadenza, and it was quite nice. They were surprised, and I was too.
Cool.
So.
Well, that's a wonderful experience.
But it's nothing that I commonly do.
I encourage you to give it a go. Maybe not every day, but I think it's a really interesting to do, especially for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it really kind of also seems like an intimate thing to do with your instrument somehow, because you don't have these borders. And I think as a musician that can be very, very scary, because we, as you said, you know, we're trained to learn the notes properly and do everything exactly written on the score, and to not have that boundary, it's almost like,
yeah, you have so many options, you don't know what to do.
Where do I even start?
Exactly.
I don't know, but I think it's a great way to kind of discover your own voice and what you like and what comes easiest to you. And yeah, that's something I've been playing around with quite a lot this year, especially somehow.
Nice. Yeah, I think it's a big mistake to not encourage this more during studies, because we're so focused on, which of course is also very important, to know all the small details in the score and to, you know, sacrifice everything that we have to make this one thing perfect.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's quite a new thing to only focus on that, no? I mean, musicians of the past have always at least like composed or improvised themselves. All the composers, of course, were improvisers and also instrumentalists. So I think that should change. I think it's already changing a little, but it should.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Actually, I remember back in Bachelor, some pianist, actually, I don't know if you know David Dolan.
Don't think so.
I can't remember where he was from, but he came in and gave a masterclass about it. I remember hating it back then. I thought, oh my goodness, because you know, if you're being taught improvisation in a masterclass where you have an audience, people watching you, and you're asked to like sing a melody, like come up with something, and I'm like, first of all, I don't want to sing. It's actually quite funny because I did it with my younger brother, and he's a cellist, and he hates singing. Like, he will never ever sing, even if somebody tells him. What he does instead is whistle. I don't know if it's a cellist thing. Almost every cellist I know is really good whistler.
I can also whistle quite well. Well, I'm not a cellist.
But that was really funny. He was.
The
Why not? You have time.
Exactly.
Well, Mario, it's been a pleasure having you here today.
Same. Thank you.
I've really enjoyed our conversation.
Yes, me too.
And I hope we'll have you back again sometime.
Yes.
And I really hope that you all enjoyed it. Let me know what you think down in the comments. And please like, share, and subscribe. And stick around for next week. Cheers.